So I've been playing Rebel Cause for a little bit now, and so far, the game has been good for the most part. But there are one or two things that have soured it a little bit for me. And before I go into that, a little intro to Rebel Corps. It's a premium turn-based strategy game that fans of XCOM will feel right at home with. Except here, you play as desperate corps versus overwhelming robbers. Your town, Britain, has been taken over by a mysterious Russian criminal who by hook or crook has become the law of the town. Some of the corps have decided to fight against this control, with limited resources gotten from some of the poorer town folks who also want their town back. And this is basically the plot setup for everything you'll be doing in Rebel Corps. So let's get into what makes it good and what makes it not so good. Very early into Rebel Corps, you realize stealth is not your only option, but it's your best option. Considering the situation, you're always outgunned and outmanned by more than a 2-to-1 ratio against your enemies. And adding permadeath, and Rebel Corps' biggest selling point, its one-shot means death system. Alerting enemies becomes more of a suicidal or desperate situation, and sneaking in, taking down suspects quietly, and arresting them is always the best option that will even grant special points to your team and maybe even increase your reputation with the townsfolk. Crazily enough, when you do get into a shootout, you can target specific body parts for like a headshot, or target hands or legs to stop them from being able to fire back or move. If your cops or criminals get a critical shot, it's instant death. But if they don't, they slowly bleed out, and depending on where the bullet hits, they might or might not be able to still fight back while bleeding. Like for instance, shooting an enemy on their foot means they can't move anymore, but they can still shoot back. But shooting them on their arms means they can't shoot back, but they can still move around. Honestly, Rebel Corps seems to have less of an erratic RNG system like the one people complain about in XCOM games. Another important part of Rebel Corps that I actually didn't know about going into it, but was pleasantly surprised to find, was the resource management you have to go through in the game. Your Rebel Corps have very limited resources to operate with, and you have to not only choose which corps to take on missions, but also what gear to equip them with in a limited inventory space. And as in most tactical turn-based games with permadeath, figuring out how to use or risk using your limited number of corps in missions is a major part of the fun here. Higher level corps start out with 1 or 2 special abilities, like being better at long range shots or being able to arrest criminals in a single go, without first having to stun them or hold them up, and there are much more abilities to unlock. Surviving corps for missions will gain experience and eventually give you the option to unlock new abilities for them. Also, considering the dire situation you find yourself in, some corps will get mentally tired after a mission, and using them immediately will see them not perform to the best of their abilities. The management of your corps and the fear of losing them, especially after you built them up and upgraded them, is just other factors in what is already a tense situation, and things like permadeath and resource management help also sell you on that feeling that your corps are being pushed to the extreme. As for me at least, it sold me on it. The mission structure and level design, another aspect of Rebel Corps that are really deep, and also carry on the planning and decision on risk-taking the game wants players to be involved in. You have main missions, and inside those main missions, you have optional side missions. You sometimes also have standalone side missions that are just as big as the main missions themselves. But while the rewards might prove useful, you have to remember that taking corps on these full-size missions will leave them mentally down, and you don't have a battalion of corps to choose from to replace them, so you have to take that into consideration. Also, accepting side missions and not delivering on them will affect your reputation with the people, and this also directly affects your relationship with the only guy who's bold and willing enough to sell weapons, armors, and other necessary items to your squad. So keeping the town happy keeps him happy, and will be beneficial to your rebels in the long run. Also, the game gives you many mini dialogue options and situations that will affect your relationship with the townsfolk. Like for instance, a guy implores you to help take back his business from thugs. Charge him reasonably as an under-resourced police force and nobody bats an eye, and you get some cash. Overcharge him and your reputation goes down, but you get even more cash. And do it for free, watch your reputation soar and get no cash in return. As you can see, even in mission selection, it's all about making decisions in Rebel Corps. And I haven't even covered the main missions yet. At least once or twice, the main missions in Rebel Corps are going to leave you surprised in a good way. Yes, these are pre-planned, but dynamic situations nonetheless that will at least surprise you the very first time they occur. And this mission might also have a special prerequisite that you need to tackle. In my first mission, I had a limited number of turns to stop a train. But at the same time, the guards at the train station weren't criminals. So while I could kill them as collateral damage, I'd also lose a lot of reputation with the town, as the guards are just doing their jobs, and the people want your cops to reclaim the law, not become vigilantes. The criminals on the train I was to stop, on the other hand, I was free to dispose of them as I wish. On the second mission, where I had unlimited turns in a big level, with lots of side missions, but then out of nowhere I get informed that two brothers have lost it after their sister got assaulted and on their way to an inconceived shootout. I can get in their way and get involved in a shootout with them in order to stop them from affecting the mission. Or I can try to arrest them and keep them safe. Or I can just leave them and let them get involved in a gunfight with the criminals. And that wasn't even the only unplanned situation in that mission. So for everything I've said, from the single shot to die for you and enemies, to resource, reputation and squad management, all add up to a game that requires a lot of planning and care. But even then, unforeseen circumstances might come into play, and the combination of all these should add up to a fantastic experience. But I say should, because one thing almost breaks the game for me. I have two cons, but one is kind of minor. But the major con, maybe it's just me, but yeesh. Up till now, I'm still not even sure if it's a bug or not. But I'll try to explain as best as I can. You see, once you get on a mission, your cops are usually in open spaces with buildings around them, and the position of all enemies are not always apparent till you get to a close or safe distance from them, or till you go into a building through different means, either by lockpicking, which is a more quiet way of going in, or just bashing your way in, which means you alert all enemies in the building. But once you get near enough to the enemies and they come into view, the odd thing is rebel cops can have them just disappear randomly from your view, and it totally confused me and ruined my tactics sometimes. I mean, it's like you spot three guys to your left, and one of them takes a step and all of a sudden, boom, invincible. I mean, there's a mechanic in the game where if you keep two cops close to each other, they can warn each other about a potentially bad move. I don't take out one of the criminals, and all of a sudden my partner called me out, warning me of being spotted. But I couldn't see anyone, only for the game to show a shadow map of another criminal who was right behind the suspect I was about to take down. And this was someone I already previously spotted. Now I understand doing gaming things for gaming reasons, so giving me a limited view until I get to a particular distance from enemies, or unless I have a cop with the ability to sight enemies from long range, still makes sense to me. It's for making the game more fun or more challenging for those with more experience in tactical games. Making enemies in buildings also invincible until I go in blindly, or use a sniper to scope for a limited turn, with the sniper also being limited in the number of turns you can use him. That makes sense. Get your cops around the building, use your sniper to scope it to determine the best point of entry. Again, on a gaming level, that is a proper and logical way of doing things, and the utilization of your sniper is limited to the extent that you can't abuse it. But having close by enemies who are already spotted just randomly disappear at multiple times in multiple levels, that just doesn't make any sense to me on any level, gaming or otherwise. And considering its effects on the moment-to-moment tactical planning, I won't be surprised if some players consider this a deal breaker, or maybe it's just me. Another con, though minor, and one that you might be able to put on the for better gameplay slab, is the fact that you can't pick up weapons from enemies. You can actually pick up various resources scattered around levels, but when you consider you're a rebel police force, it is back against the wall, and how every other game system seems to be in line with that mantra. It feels kind of disappointing that 6 cops with limited firepower take down like 15 plus bad guys and just leave their precious guns to rot. I wish rebel cops would have let you get ammo and weapons from enemies you take down, but maybe it limits the ammo depending on whether you arrest them or you kill them. But again, this isn't a deal breaker, and it's probably more or less an acceptable use of video game logic from indie games in order to keep you indebted to the gun shop owner and trying to stay on the town's good side. So maybe this one is less of a con and more of an unfortunate but non-game breaking effect of indie game's vision for rebel cops. If I'm being honest, I'm not the most experienced of turn-based tactic layouts there. I mean, there's a noob in my channel name after all. And I'm not ashamed to say I was going to save scum my way through Rare Cups on normal difficulty till I got good or till I stumbled my way to the end of the game. Or the whole vanishing enemy thing putting me off. And I just play on the easiest difficulty. Again, not ashamed to say this. And give the game at least another try. But for those fans of tactical games who want the next big turn-based shooter on mobile, I wonder if Rare Cup's major con will vanish in the sea of positive features the game has. I'm Noob Gamer, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.